bridge at the Launchpad Studios in Huntington, New York. It's Sports Talk New York with your hosts, Mark Rosenman and AJ Carter. Sports Talk New York is sponsored in part by Cardboard Memories, Clearview, Long Island, the law firm of Decolator, Cohen, and DePrisco, the Phoenix Tube Company, PIMS Incorporated, fueling brand performance for 30 years, Prince Associates for all your insurance needs, and Soho Table Hockey. Here are your hosts, Mark and AJ.
And good evening to you. Mark Roseman, AJ Carter, Mike Capice with you this Sunday evening. Full slate of sports going on. Mets, Yankees later tonight. Jets played this afternoon. Giants currently playing. It's really a cool time of the season.
Calm down. You got to watch your heart.
Well, listen, I'm a Met and Jet fan. It's a lost cause.
Yeah, but the Jets today, you can take away from it a positive. I really think. We'll talk to Jay about that later.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. And it was the first time in a number of years that you felt that the leadership was competent and
you look at the end of the game, you have a quarterback. Look, first half terrible. Second half turned it around. One of the big problems we had with the past few coaches was they couldn't make the adjustments at halftime.
Yeah, we'll talk to Jay about that a little later. But, if you are a loyal listener of our show, we started off each and every week with the Major League Baseball report with John Coppinger. It's sponsored by Cardboard Memories, which is one of Long Island's most reputable memorabilia retail stores for over 29 years. The owner of Cardboard Memories, Scott Stamell, is known for his knowledge and savvy of authentic autographs. He's been featured on HBO Real Sports with Brian Gumbel. Cardboard Memories possesses the honesty and integrity one would want and need from a memorabilia source. Cardboard Memories is always buying collections large and small. Let them run your next charity fundraising auction. Give them a call. We'll find out how they can help your organization at no cost. Cardboard Memories, located at 6401 Jericho Turnpike. And if you are listening to us maybe in Washington or Oregon or anywhere else, check them out on the web at cardboardmemories.com or follow them on Facebook or Instagram. All right, John. So right off the bat, I chose to go to the game Thursday night. I didn't want to, deal with the traffic and the women's final at the U.S. Open and everything surrounding the 9/11 game. I really wanted to watch it and get the full flavor of the game on television. And it wasn't on SNY. It was on Fox. And it was just such an aggravating and brutal 40 minutes that they really did not do the pregame ceremony justice, the camera shots, the directing. What did you think? Maybe it was just me. What did you think of the coverage of the pregame festivities on the 9/11 game for the New York Mets, New York Yankee game?
Well, I thought the ceremony itself was nice.
Yes.
But they just kept interrupting it with commercials after commercials. And then they would come back for a while. Okay, here are the 2001 Mets with all of the first responders, and then another commercial. So it was, if you were at the game, it had to seem weird because here are some ceremonies and now they stop, and here are some ceremonies and now they stop, and for commercials, unless we were missing ceremonies, which would be inexcusable. And then when Bobby Valentine and Joe Torre are getting ready to throw out the ceremonial first pitch, the guys on the panel are still yammering and talking. And it's like, can you be quiet? They're obviously getting ready to throw out the first pitch, which is what everybody wants to see. I thought the ceremony itself was great. It wasn't overdone. It was very, very nice, but the coverage was very uneven.
So here's the question, though. If, they're playing not to the New York audience, if you're watching it on SNY, if you're watching it, and yes, you get New York coverage, and they know what the New York audience is. Put yourself in somebody watching this game from Kansas, Nebraska. How do you think they would react to the coverage? Would they have the same sensitivity that we have here in New York?
But yes, I do think so, because it wasn't. What are they looking for? How are you catering to the national fan with commercials?
I think, John, they wouldn't notice or care as much. First of all, we're spoiled.
Well, not only that, but I disagree, because there are other events where they do the split box with the commercial. At least you see the background, what's going on. There was no reason that they couldn't have left the background and shown the field shot, a far shot of what was going on in the field, and have that split box with the commercial. I've seen that done many times. ESPN does that very effectively. Right. I mean, that's one of the few things ESPN does well.
And I get almost annoyed, even more annoyed at the commercial when I say that too. I say,
and you're right. And you said Big Papi, listen, and no disrespect meant to what happened at the Boston Marathon, but these are two complete. I understand what Papi was trying to say, but I don't think it was the right place during the pregame. You want to make that point sometime in a cut-in during the game, that's fine. But when you're out there with the first responders and he's saying how he saw how baseball heals, I understand that. And also they did some other
whether it's baseball or football, I hate the studio shows. Right. I don't watch any of the advanced studio shows in football. They tell me nothing.
Right. And the best is I know you don't have Apple TV, but right. Ted Lasso has a whole thing about the soccer studio shows, which you would absolutely love. All right, let's move on from what I at least felt was awful coverage.
Let's move to the field,
which was a game showed basically two very flawed teams, two managers struggling to stay relevant and in the pennant race. What was your takeaway from that game yesterday?
Well, the Mets are lovingly mediocre. We know that. I think they've proven that well in advance of Saturday's game. I think if you're the Yankees, you're worried because I think what the two games showed, both Friday and Saturday, is that they don't have a bullpen that you can trust. We know they don't trust Chapman, even though they closed the game in the ninth on Saturday, but he came close to blowing it. I almost said Girardi. Aaron Boone brought in Chad Green in the sixth to try to shut it down, thinking that that's the rally. And Chad Green gives up the lead. So now you're thinking, what's going on? And if the Mets don't give it up to Aaron Judge, and if Baez doesn't throw that ball away, then that would have been a major, major concern for the Yankees. And also, too, Corey Kluber has a 5-0 lead. You got Corey Kluber because he's a former Cy Young Award winner, and I never thought that he could get it done coming off the injuries he has. I think that's going to kill the Yankees, just not having a true number two starter that you can trust. I think this really showed the Yankees' flaws. The Mets' flaws, I think we've all known about for the past week or two or three.
All right, and then we'll talk next Sunday, and maybe the Mets will reel off 4 or 5 wins again. So,
yes.
it's an unbelievable.
But I'll say one thing before I go.
Yes.
How do you pull Corbin Burns with 8 innings into a no-hitter? How do you 6 or 7 at 115 pitches? Because I understand 8 innings, let him go. Come on.
Exactly. All right, John Coppinger here each and every week with the Cardboard Memories Baseball Report. We'll take a quick break on the other side. Jason Marquis joins us, so keep it tuned right here.
Do you own a business? When is the last time you actually had a visit from or even spoke with your insurance representative? Did your current insurance agency sell to another firm or maybe merge, leaving you without the attention you deserve? Prince Associates is a provider of commercial insurance nationwide and represents some of the finest insurance carriers in the industry. Prince Associates has been representing commercial clients since 1965, and we continue to grow and offer our personal services in a competitive and ever-changing market. If you want back the insurance relationship you deserve, reach out to us. 516-822-6550. That's area code 516-822-6550. And ask for Leith or Craig, or find us on the web at www.princeins.com.
And welcome back to Sports Talk New York this Sunday evening. Mark Roseman, AJ Carter with you. Joining us now is a man who enjoyed a 15-year career in the majors. He pitched for the Atlanta Braves, St. Louis Cardinals, Chicago Cubs, Colorado Rockies, Washington Nationals, Arizona Diamondbacks, San Diego Padres, Minnesota Twins, and the Cincinnati Reds. He won 11 or more games for 6 straight years through 2009. He also started 28 or more games in each of the years 2004 through 2009. His 65 wins from 2004 to 2008 ranked 7th among NHL National League pitchers. He pitched in a World Series, making him one of the few ball players to have played in both a Little League World Series and a Major League World Series. He was the ace of Team Israel at the 2017 World Baseball Classic. He was a starting pitcher for the Atlanta Braves in one of the most iconic baseball games in New York history, as on September 21st, 2001, he started against the New York Mets. It is a pleasure to welcome Jason Marquis to Sports Talk New York. Welcome, Jason. How you doing?
What's up, guys? How's everything?
Everything is great. So, it's interesting because, Yeah, if you couldn't tell, Mark Roseman, AJ Carter is a little less, revealing, but both of us are Jewish. And, most Jewish kids from New York celebrate their 13th birthday with a bar mitzvah. You, however, spent your 13th birthday leading your Little League team to a first-round victory in the Little League World Series over Chad Pennington and his Ohio team by throwing a 3-hitter, striking out 11, not allowing a walk, and on top of that, you added 3 hits and 3 RBIs. What are some of the things you learned from Coach Philemon and that experience at such a young age?
Well, obviously, when you're a kid, you're out there playing the game, having fun, hanging out with your friends. But you also, obviously, want to win. You want to take the game serious and, prove the talent level that you have. But obviously, my 3 Little League coaches, from Dave Philemon, Goody Halverson, and Alan Lauro, made a big impact on me from a young age and really taught me the fundamentals, the basics, helped me fall in love with the game and allowed me to grow as a player and really, helped me turn into what I became later on down the road.
Yeah, it's also interesting because you pitched your Tottenville High School Pirates to 2 consecutive New York City Public School Athletic League PSAL titles, one of them at Shea Stadium, the other at Yankee Stadium. So at this point, you have pitched into championship games on ESPN and then at both Yankee and Shea Stadium. How did you deal with that type of pressure at such an early age?
I just really think I had a focus early on and really had a bigger picture goal in mind. You always live in the moment and you're trying to win ball games at that given moment in time. But I think being exposed at a young age into Little League World Series and, you always have an idea of what you want to do. It allowed me to get, comfortable on those big stages. I just feel like I was able to carry what I did from a young age. I really got engrossed in what I was doing. Try to black out everything around me other than the task at hand. And that was just trying to make a pitch. If I'm in the batter's box, trying to somehow defeat the pitcher with what he's throwing up against me. And if you get lost in that little world and lock in on what you're doing, I just think everything else around you becomes a blur, whether it's the other team, 30,000 fans, distractions. And I think, that set me up to allow me to do that on a higher stage.
So over the course of the 16 years of doing this show, AJ and I have heard so many unique draft day stories. Yours is pretty special. So can you take us back to draft day, how you found out that you were drafted by the Atlanta Braves in the first round with the 35th selection overall?
Yeah, it was 1996. I mean, that was a long time ago, obviously. But yeah, I mean, I had a high school. I remember it was the quarterfinal, the semifinal game. We were playing at Poly Prep High School, and obviously back then with the lack of cell phone, somebody had to stay. One parent had to stay home and wait by the phone. There was none of these draft parties and TV spots and cameras on you and live Zooms, and it was the good old days of cordless phone. Parent waiting home. When they got the call, obviously they drove to Brooklyn to the game, and mid-game they sort of relayed the message to me on the round and picked that I was drafted. So, but once again, I had to play a game. It was important to me, and I'm grateful, obviously, that the Braves made me that selection and gave me an opportunity to further my career.
It should be noted for the New York fans in the audience that you won the most games of anyone drafted in that first round, career-wise. You were drafted 15 picks after the New York Yankees selected Eric Milton and 5 picks before the Mets selected left-handed pitcher Brendan Benn, who never pitched a game in the majors. Do you ever wonder what it might have been like had you been drafted by either New York team?
Listen, you always have dreams as a kid to play in a uniform that you rooted for. I grew up a Yankee fan, but as time went on, I started to love the National League. I enjoyed hitting, and to play in any one of those uniforms, the Mets or the Yankees, definitely would have been a super highlight of my career, but obviously that opportunity never unfolded. So it definitely would have been nice. You look back and say, what if? But listen, everybody makes their choices. Everybody has their reasons. And, you just say, hey, this is the route they wanted to go. I got to focus on the route I'm going. And all in all, I think it turned out pretty good.
Speaking of the route that you're going, you signed a letter of intent to play for the University of Miami, and you passed that up to start your baseball career. Do you ever regret, especially growing up in a household where your mother was a teacher, not going to college?
Yeah, I get that question a lot. I have, especially now with my kids in the high school level, you're starting to see some real quality players. I've been around some players who are probably going to get drafted here in the next year or two. And there was possibly one this past year. And you get that question on the, do you sign, do you not sign? And I always try to tell the kids more of the options and instead of telling them what to do. But I believe that if you're going to go to college, it's not to further or better your draft status. It's more you're a student combined with an athlete. So if you're going to college, you got to be ready to do that schoolwork. You got to be ready to commit to that side of it, not only the baseball side. But I looked at it as I was a mature 17-year-old. I was ready to pursue my career. I weighed the options where I knew school and the college institution was always going to be there. I mean, if I go to college and get hurt, an unforeseen accident or whatever it may be on the field, off the field, and never really had a chance to pursue my career and my love, and that was becoming a major leaguer, that would have been more of a regret than anything else. Yes, I talk to friends. They've had great college experiences, and you do lose some maybe connections and relationships that otherwise maybe that I didn't have. But I look back, I have no regrets. And also, then again, I was a barely 6-foot right-hander out of New York to go draft that high. How much am I going to really raise my draft stock going out of college also? I mean, listen, I'll always bet on Jason Marquis, and there's never a doubt about that. But you also got to play numbers and pay percentages, because that's when logic comes into play.
So you mentioned, I mean, you're drafted by the Braves, and for years and years, the two organizations, at least National League wise, that always seem to win and have a certain way and a mystique about them are the Braves and the Cardinals. You make your way up that Braves minor league ladder, where your managers range from Brian Stickner, the current manager, Paul Runge, and Freddie Gonzalez. Who had the biggest influence within the organization for you on the way up?
That's actually a really good question. You think back on your time. Like I mentioned, I've been blessed to have great Little League coaches, great high school coaches, play on big stage from Little League World Series to high school city championships at Yankee and Shea Stadium. And now you get to the minor league level, and you look across the board and you're like, man, I got Maddox, Glavine, Smoltz ahead of me. How am I going to make this happen? How am I going to make this happen? So once again, it goes back to betting on yourself, putting in the work, finding a way to make it happen. But you come across some really, really good people. And I don't want to discredit for not mentioning people's names, but I would say, Snicker is probably my favorite manager that I had. He just had a way about treating an 18-year-old like he was a 35-year-old veteran, understanding, hey, do your work, do your job. I'm watching, but I'm not going to be here to be a babysitter. This is your career. I'm going to provide information for you, and it's yours for the taking. And then on the pitching side, Bruce Del Canton. He pitched in the big. He pitched in the big leagues for about
Pirates.
14.
Pirates, yeah.
Yeah, 14 years. Obviously he passed away probably 7 or 8 years ago. We had a great relationship and really helped me with the mental side of the game, understanding what I was good at doing, what I was not good at doing, and just really how to refine my game to get me to the point I was. And there was so many great guys within the organization, from Glenn Hubbard, Chino Cadejia, Paul Runge. The list could go on, but I just felt like, not knowing other organizations, I felt like the Braves did a really, really good job of player development and allowing guys to reach their full potential.
Yeah, Bruce Del Canton, I remember him well. Saw him pitch many a game against the Mets for sure. So you're called up to the majors by the Braves in June of 2000. You make your debut June 6, 2000, in relief of, you mentioned, one of the future Hall of Famers on that team, Tommy Glavine, against the Blue Jays. What do you remember most about the day? And it's interesting because obviously when Glavine's taken out for the pinch hitter, when Reggie Sanders pinch hits for him in the 7th, you're already warming up. You're going in. What's going through your mind as you're throwing those final warm-up pitches and coming out of that bullpen?
Well, you always feel like I always felt like, I don't want to just come off as a cocky type of attitude, but I always had the belief that I was a major leaguer from a young age, especially when I got drafted. And I always felt like it was going to happen, and you just don't know when. You know, when obviously being 21 years old, you're like, all right, this is the time. I always envisioned myself as a starter, but I said, okay, get your feet wet, do your job, make an impression. So when I get called up, it really sort of hit me when the door opened and I started running out to the field. I think it was probably the only time in my career where I didn't feel like I had my legs underneath me jogging out to the mound. You know, it was that first time like, oh, okay, like are my legs here? Like I didn't even know, like you're floating on air. So that's really when it hit me, when that door opened and you took the jog out, you know, to come out and start the inning after they took Tommy out.
For those listeners, you know, that aren't in New York, you're not coming off as you know, a cocky ball player, but you are coming off what we would expect is a Staten Islander. That's all. Right. That's what we would expect. Nothing less, Jason.
Right.
No, well, hopefully I don't give Staten Island a bad name. Hopefully I turn some good light on Staten Island.
We're in New York. That's a good name for Staten Island.
For us.
You know, Jason, in the minor leagues, one of your teammates was Mike Glavine, the brother of Tom.
Yep.
Your first game in the majors, as Mark said, you came in relief for Tom Glavine. Did that quirk ever enter your mind as you took the mound?
No, not really. I mean, Tommy came from, I believe, the Cleveland organization. Mike came from the Cleveland organization before he came over to Atlanta, and we just, you know, struck up a good relationship. He was our first baseman when I was in Double-A with Greenville. So that relationship was already there. You know, there's always these small little ties and, you know, 6 degrees of separation that somehow everybody's connected in some way or another. But it was cool that I was able to get a spring training or two under my belt with the big league club. So I got a familiarity with all the players and felt comfortable once I got to put on the big league uniform with those guys.
So the following year, you become a starting pitcher, joining, you know, the Braves' celebrated staff with Hall of Famers Greg Maddux, Tommy Glavine, as well as Kevin Millwood, another excellent pitcher. Smoltz was on that team also. What are some of the advantages and disadvantages on being on a staff with three of the greatest pitchers in Braves franchise history?
Well, there are definitely way more advantages and disadvantages. I think the disadvantage is just trying to live up to who they are, and you could get caught up trying to do what they're doing instead of being Jason Marquis or a young pitcher being themselves. You try to do things that they're doing, but they've had 16 years of experience by then at that point, you know, whether it be a combination of minor leagues and big leagues. So to me, that would be the one disadvantage in learning how to just control that. But more than anything, just learning how to be a big leaguer, how to attack hitters, how they prepare, what days they work out on. I mean, the list could go on, that if you're around those guys and can't learn from those guys, there's something wrong with you.
So come to 2001, and the season is interrupted by what happened in 9/11. Your sister, your fiance, and your best friend all worked within 2 blocks of the World Trade Center. And after you learned of the attacks, you frantically tried to reach them. How did you eventually learn they were safe? What was going through your mind until you found that they were safe?
Yeah, no, it was my wife's, well, at the time I found my wife's best friend, my best friend and my sister. So my wife she might have still been in college or just right out of college working on Staten Island. But yeah, I mean, listen, back then, like I said, the cell phones weren't as prevalent. They just started out. So most people are home and you were able to reach landlines. They're the ones a little bit more researching, trying to figure out where everybody is. And once you just gotta, I guess, hope and pray and sit there and play a waiting game and not try to fill your head with too many negative thoughts that, you know, the people you know and love do come out on the positive side. Not that you're wishing bad for the people you don't know, because you should never. That's bad. But obviously, everybody just turns their attention to personal connections first, usually, and then it turns to everybody else. It was such a heinous act that you really couldn't imagine something like that happen. And, you know, in the moment, chaos, hectic as all could be. So you're just saying, hoping and praying that everything's okay.
The season would resume, and baseball returns to New York on September 21st, and you're the starting pitcher that night. Given all that had transpired over the previous 10 days, including the loss of your childhood friend, the man who was the right fielder from that 1991 Little League World Series team, Michael Camerata, who was part of Engine Company 1 and lost his life on 9/11, how did you try to deal with keeping your emotions in check the days and hours leading up to that start against the Mets?
Yeah, there's always a lot of thoughts and running through your head a little bit of the anxiousness, the doubt, the unknown. But I think I was talking about this with a few guys yesterday on the golf course. You know, obviously, this time of the year, it comes up as a topic of conversation. And with the game being played so many days running and making a big deal, obviously, with the 20-year anniversary, it's you sort of, and this is where coming in as a young age at 11, 12, playing in those big moments, you learn how to block out emotions. I don't want to say you want to desensitize the moment. You don't want to be not have emotion, but you sort of, that's part of training also. It's not only, for me, you're training your mind more than you're training your body. I think that was a big part of me, of where I got to with my success playing baseball and being on the mound, was understanding how to train your brain. I mean, because throughout your career, you deal with problems. You deal with whether it's family problems, marital problems, you're not feeling good, you're having opposing thoughts with maybe people in the organization. It's just natural. And I think you just learn when it's go time, when you step out on the field ready to, get loose and get ready for the game, you just learn how to focus on the task at hand. So you rely on that more than anything in those moments.
So one of the touching moments of that game came after the introductions, and the team is around the foul lines, and Bobby Valentine, who's the managing the Mets, walks over to the Brave side and hugs your manager, Bobby Cox, which led to players on both teams getting together and embracing. Can you walk us through your thoughts as you saw all of this develop and happen in the pregame?
Well, I was warming up during that, so I didn't really get to see any of that. I was in the bullpen warming up for the game. So obviously I've seen it numerous times on replay and video over these last 20 years. And it just shows you, and you hear Bobby say, like, who would ever thought our bitter rivals, we fight, we argue, we're trying to take the pen from them before a game to be given hugs. But that just shows you the magnitude, the importance of that game, on how we needed to unite and become one to move forward from something tragic that should have never happened.
It's interesting because over the years, I think we might have had every single member of that Met team on the show, and we do get around to talking about that specific game. We never really heard from the Brave side, and this is the first year where there's been a lot of documentaries that have come out talking about it. And just recently, I saw that Chipper Jones said he actually had a premonition when Piazza stepped into the batter's box that he was going to hit a home run. He said he actually turned to the outfield and pointed over the fence. And Smoltz, I believe last night on, during the telecast, said that it was somewhat fitting that the Mets won that game. When you see that ball that Piazza hits leave the yard, what was going through your head?
Well, you know what? After throwing 6 innings, I normally do my post-game routine, go in, ice, do my exercises and all that good stuff. This is one of the games where I chose, obviously, not to do it. Came back into dugout because I never really got to feel the emotion of the stadium. I did a little bit before the game. It was very, I want to say, uneventful, very quiet, very somber for the most part the whole game. There was a few cheers here and there. And I felt like the 7th inning, when I guess Liza Minnelli gave the 7th inning performance, the crowd got a little bit lively, and people started cheering and smiling, and it felt like it was like, okay, like it's okay to cheer. It's okay to cheer. And I felt like watching the Piazza home run. It was almost like a sigh of relief, a deep breath for everybody in that stadium to be like, okay, it's okay to move on. I actually heard an interview, which I found very interesting, of a wife, a mother of 2, and her husband was one of the first responders who chose to give up his life and do such a heroic act. And after that home run, it was the first time in 10 days that she saw her 2 boys actually smile. And that's from a personal connection. And if that one home run, that moment could create an emotion like that for two boys to go through a situation where they lost their father in that moment, and it was okay by their mother for them to smile and be happy. Us in the dugout had that okay moment, like, okay, this was the way it was supposed to be, to help everybody sort of start the process of moving on and healing and getting back some sense of normalcy.
Absolutely fascinating. Yeah, I heard that story as well. But and every time I hear it, it gives me chills. We mentioned in the open that you played for multiple teams after the Braves, and you had standout years with the Cardinals and Rockies. And when the Rockies qualified for the postseason in 2009, it marked the 10th time in 10 years, every year of your major league career to that point, that the team in which you pitched for made the playoffs. And you're actually the first player in baseball history that has been on a playoff team in each of the first 10 years of your career while playing for at least 3 different teams. There are players that go their entire career and don't play one single playoff game, never get to the postseason. When you think back on those first 10 seasons and the trips to the playoffs, as well as pitching in a World Series, what are the things that stand out most about those opportunities for you?
I was just hopefully one, I was part of the equation where I contributed to those teams to help get them to the postseason. That's one thing I take pride in, where hopefully I made an impact with those first 162 games to get us to the point of making the playoffs. You know, hopefully all 25 guys on the roster, hopefully they all contributed. That's one. Two, you learn. You just put in situations of, you know, being with the Braves. That's another thing. You put in a situation where you don't really have time to develop, so you had to right away learn how to win. Because if you didn't learn how to win, you weren't sticking around. So I think those first 3 or 4 years were instrumental, and I felt like I had an edge just from obviously the previous stages of my life, like we mentioned, winning 2 city championships, Little League World Series, knowing how to win. And I think I was able to fall back and draw on experiences as a youngster to bring that type of mentality at the highest level. Yeah. So anywhere I went, I sort of had that mentality where I was a young guy looking up and leaning on the big guys as time was on, where maybe I was the veteran and young guys could lean on my knowledge. So it was it was a great run. Even the teams I didn't make the playoffs, some great people, great relationships. And, I was, obviously, super proud of what I was able to accomplish.
Yeah, I'm curious about one thing. In 2003, you traded to the Cardinals in a deal that included Adam Wainwright, who's amazingly still pitching, getting batters out today. Your pitching coach in St. Louis was Dave Duncan, and he made some adjustments that really helped you and sort of really turned your career around. How different was he from the legendary Leo Mazzoni? Why do you think he was able to help you more than the legendary Braves pitching coach?
Yeah, listen, as a young guy, especially back then, I guess maybe the game has changed or life has changed, where maybe the pecking order, paying your dues maybe doesn't exist as much anymore, which I think it should still, because you're relying on people with experience to lead the way a little bit. But I just felt like going over there, he was able to help me really help me define what type of pitcher I was. It wasn't like my stuff changed. I still threw 93 to 96. I still had a good sink on my ball. I still had a good slider. I think the game planning, really, he was a really good game planner, and he helped me to really understand what I do really good. And I think I said, all right, you have a little trust and you roll with it. And, that's, started the upward trajectory of my career.
Throughout your career, you're also known as an excellent hitter. You have a Silver Slugger Award. You called on to pinch hit. You're also called on to pinch run. Shohei Ohtani has been able to put together a season, 44 home runs to go along with a 9-2 record and a sub-4 ERA this season. Can you tell our audience, someone who's played the game at that level, just how difficult that is?
He is a special talent as they come. He must do so much prep work, so much body work, get enough sleep. I mean, this guy is doing things that you never thought would be done. And that's just a testament to him. And it probably started at 10, 11 years old. It didn't just start 3 years ago when he put on a professional uniform. But you can't even overstate what he's doing. I can't even put into words how difficult is physically yet mentally to do what he's doing. So it's fun to watch. I'm glad I'm able to watch and see somebody in this generation do something like that. I know there's going to be more that try to attempt it. Will it happen? Obviously, it's a possibility because somebody just showed they could do it. Hopefully, the longevity of it is able to withstand a little bit of time. But, the body can only handle so much. So hopefully he's able to take care of himself because it is definitely fun to watch.
Jason, thank you so much for your time. We didn't even get to half the stuff. We could have done an entire show on just the Team Israel stuff. Every time I hear you, I think you are a perfect fit, whether it be for a podcast or show on our radio network or on Major League Baseball Network or the Mets, pre or post game show.
We're talking about Staten Island.
Yeah, absolutely. So really appreciate your time. And, you were also a very big sense of pride for AJ and I during the qualifier for the WBC with Team Israel. So thanks so much for being on with us tonight.
Oh, you're welcome. Hey, guys, we could always do this again and catch up on the stuff we missed out. And hopefully I'll hear from you guys soon.
Okay.
You definitely will. Jason Marquis, former Major League Baseball player, former ace of the 2017 Israel WBC qualifying team. We'll take a quick break on the other side. We talk AJ's favorite sport, hockey, so keep it tuned right here.
The Phoenix Tube Company Incorporated is among the country's leading manufacturers of structural ornamental stainless steel tubing, rectangles, squares, and processed flat bars. The company takes pride in its everyday commitment to quality and customer service. The philosophy of the company has been and continues to be to support the growth of the stainless tube market through distribution and service centers throughout the country. Ornamental and structural stainless steel tubing is used for a wide variety of aesthetic and mechanical products where superior finish and corrosion resistance are required. Some products manufactured include tubing for mirror bracket arms, boat rails and ladders, washroom grab bars, swimming pool rail products, medical equipment, automotive step bars and trimming, as well as structural framing for food processing equipment. For a quote or for more information on how the Phoenix Tube Company can meet your ornamental and structural stainless steel tubing needs, visit them on the web at phoenixtube.com or call them toll-free at 1-800-526-2124.
And welcome back to Sports Talk New York this Sunday night. Mark Roseman, AJ Carter, Mike Capis with you this Sunday. Make sure you keep it tuned right here afterwards. Of course, BT Talks Baseball is up following us. But right now it's time for the NHL Report with Russ Cohn. It's sponsored by our friends over at Soho Table Hockey. What's table hockey, you say? AJ, what's table hockey, you say?
What is table hockey?
You're not very good with the four questions either.
Hey.
Well, it's been a long time since you've been the youngest at the same.
Right, but I can answer. I can say that in Hebrew. I can't say what is table hockey.
Some of us might have grown up with rod hockey or bubble hockey or even air hockey tables. Soho Table Hockey has embraced the nostalgia of those old tabletop games and designed a whole new board for the future, handcrafted with designer woods, state-of-the-art playing surface, unbendable rods, energy-absorbing walls. This is a table hockey game that players age 8 to 80, including AJ, can enjoy. Even better, the exceptional quality and design allows.
Let the record. I'm in the middle of that range. I'm not the far end. At the very far.
You are you are not the middle from 8 to 80. Let's not get carried away here.
But I'm not 80.
No, but you're certainly not the middle there, pal. Sorry. Even better, the exceptional quality and design allows a game to stand up to the intensity of tournaments, which is why Soho Table Hockey is the #1 choice of championship players throughout North America. Visit SohoTableHockey.com to learn more. Start your order on a custom game. You can choose your wood, a centerized logo, and even the team matchups. Go ahead, drop the puck. You'll love Soho Table Hockey so much you won't be able to stop playing. So right now, the Rangers have started their rookie development camp. Interestingly enough, there are two players who, one of which had, there was a buzz about this player for a number of years. And now with all the defensive prospects, you don't hear so much about him. And I'm just wondering what happened to all the hype surrounding Laura Panjanemi? And why don't you think, we've heard a lot about him?
Well, I just think it's out of sight, out of mind. But he's, been scoring over 20 goals a year in consecutive years in Liga, and those are good numbers. I mean, right. He's got a lot of drive and determination, some good speed. He's a good two-way player. I think you will start to hear about him. I just think a lot of fans just had trouble following him. So it was just one of those things where, late round pick. I've been covering him for a while now, watching him, and when they drafted him, he was really slight, like 150 something pounds, and so he's had to build himself up now, and I think a good year in Hartford, and you might be looking at a third liner here, and I just think it's just like you said. It's just one of those things. He just fell off the radar for the average fan.
It's interesting because originally, before Kratzoff, he was the offensive guy that everyone had their eyes on, and we were watching him, in Europe and seeing the numbers he's putting up, and everyone's wondering when he's coming over. So, I mean, how important is this developmental camp for him? And the other thing is, obviously, Lundqvist is the guy, Nils Lundqvist, that we've always been talking about. And, with the addition of Nemeth, it seems like that is going to be his mentor, and he will make the team this year. So how important is this camp for him as well?
Okay, so with Pagenaemi, it's important because he's, transitioning to North American hockey. So if he could, look good, have a smooth transition, it'll help him have a really good year. As far as Lundqvist, he does everything well. Like I think the mentoring will just be about where to position himself, because he, again, he's still getting used to North American ice too. But he's a good skater. He's an excellent offensive player. With a guy like Nemeth there, who's got that physical edge to keep a lot of pressure off of him, but he skates well. He will always get you points. He's not like a super point producer, but his puck skills are good. His stick is good. He can make the plays. And so I think right now, Braden Schneider is kind of like the shiny new guy as well, because everybody looks at his physical edge. But again, you want him to get stronger. So leave him in Hartford this year because they have that exception. And I think they might do that. And if they're able to do that, hey, great. But he's also got to still build himself up. Whereas, Lundqvist is ready. He just has to get used to North American hockey. He will have a full preseason, which again is a big deal because players didn't have that last year.
Lastly, you also mentioned Pagenaemi, maybe going down to Hartford, and maybe a third liner, maybe the following year. But how much is his familiarity, having played on a line with Capo Kakko, weigh in his favor, as well as maybe getting him here early if he does do well in training in some of these exhibition games?
If they feel like he is the spark for Kakko, and all of a sudden, Kakko is going to find that area around the net where he can get to, where he does most of his scoring, then he'll make the team. But that's a little bit of a leap right now. But in the future, I don't think it's out of the realm. And I think he could be a catalyst for him, because Kakko does need somebody to sort of help him break free, get open, get near the net, and that's when he really can score, because we haven't really seen him do that too much yet.
Awesome, Russ. The players are on the ice, so it's great. And each week we're going to be talking more and more as we get closer to when they drop the puck for real on the season. Russ Cohn here each and every week with the Soho Table Hockey Report. We're going to take a quick break. We'll talk about the induction class of no, we won't. We'll do Sunday Papers first, and then we'll talk about the induction class of 2011 for the NBA Hall of Fame. So keep tuned right here to Sports Talk New York.
If you're a company looking to increase your visibility, to make sure your promotional materials get packaged in the most attractive way and distributed most efficiently, then you need to call in PIMS. Whether you're launching a new product and need to assemble customized influencer packages, or looking for a more efficient way to manage your inventory and collateral, PIMS involvement helps maximize the impact of your brand's performance. For more than 30 years, PIMS has been helping companies get their message out to the right people, offering personalized distribution services and full-scale inventory management solutions. PIMS works its magic on 3 continents, backed by 350,000 square feet of warehouse space. If you're looking for experience, PIMS is it. They've shipped more than 13 million packages and elevated more than 8,000 brands. Want to know more? Check them out on the web, PIMSinc.com. That's PIMSinc.com, and read testimonials from their satisfied clients. That's PIMS, the first name in marketing support.
You can read it in the Sunday papers. Read it in the Sunday papers.
Joe Jackson on the radio can only mean one of two things. Either by accident you've turned back to 1980 and you're watching MTV, or it's time for AJ's Weird News of the Week. What do you got, AJ?
Well, on this one, we really should call Scott Stemmelin for his expert opinion and advice. And Leland's, which is a well-known sports auction house,
huge,
has a memorabilia item they're putting up for auction, and it's online. The bidding closes September 25th. It is a pair of game-used, I hate to say that, Michael Jordan underwear. Michael Jordan apparently was in the habit of giving all his clothes to his former chief of security. And it was suits, it was ties, belts, jackets, and underwear. And the website says this, quote, unusual item, according to UPI, shows signs of, quote, definite use.
Oh.
And has, quote, some loose threads evident at the seams. So go out if you're interested in bidding on, I don't know how it's worth, Michael Jordan game-used underwear. Now, game-used, usually brings extra value, right, to jerseys and things like that. Go out to the website, Leland's, and place your bid, but I don't know about you. What would you do? I don't think I can. I can pass on that. By the way.
Like, I mean, I don't even.
Yeah, we want to know. Yeah, what's
do you frame it? What do you do?
What do you do? Right? What do you do with it? Jersey you can frame or something like. What do you do with?
Are they boxers or briefs?
It doesn't say, but it's got to be Hanes, right? Didn't Michael Jordan have a contract with Hanes?
Wait, it doesn't have to be Hanes because do you actually think Tom Brady is eating Subway sandwiches?
Well, you would think that.
I mean,
with underwear, at least he's endorsing the product that he'd wear it.
I don't know. I don't even want to think. That's a visual I don't need.
Right.
All right. It's time now for the NBA report with Chaim Taber. Chaim, first of all,
and Michael Jordan's underwear is not being inducted into the Basketball Hall of Fame.
I'm thinking of the Space Jam 2, where maybe it's Michael B. Jordan, the actor. Maybe it's his underwear. It's whatever. All right. So, first of all, bad planning, I believe, on the part of the NBA Hall of Fame having their inductions on September 11th.
Right.
It's not very smart.
That's tone deaf, as they would say.
Kind of, and very little fanfare. But the class included Rick Edelman, 2-time NBA champion, 11-time NBA All-Star Chris Bosh, NBA Finals MVP, and 10-time NBA All-Star Paul Pierce. First Black NBA coach Bill Russell, who's there now for his second time. 4-time NBA Defensive Player of the Year NBA champion Ben Wallace. 5-time NBA All-Star, NBA Rookie of the Year Chris Webber, 2-time NCAA champion Villanova coach Jay Wright, 7-time NBA All-Star, 2-time Olympian gold medalist Yolanda Griffith, and 7-time WNBA All-Star, 3-time WNBA MVP Lauren Jackson. Of that class, which is the one that speaks to you, Chaim? Which is the one that you were most excited to go into the Hall?
Well, this isn't a class. It's certainly not the Baseball Hall of Fame. It doesn't have a crown jewel like a Derek Jeter did for baseball. This isn't the most overwhelming class, but I think to a degree that's kind of what makes it a nice class, for lack of a better adjective. It's a class of players that could easily be overlooked, historically speaking. When you look back at the 2000s, an era that was dominated, by the LeBron Jameses and the Kobe Bryants, Paul Pierce is a name that's going to kind of be overlooked. When you look back at that early Lakers dynasty, the early 2000s, Kobe, Shaq, Allen Iverson, Chris Webber's contributions for most people pretty much come down to an erroneous timeout call, and they don't realize that this was a guy going, blow for blow with Shaquille O'Neal. LA Lakers in his prime, Diesel Shaquille O'Neal. And Chris Bosh is a guy who, again, he could have easily gone down as a 30-point-a-game, superstar in Toronto, sacrificed heavily to become one of the best pick-and-roll defenders in the history of the game, to be a solid role players underselling it, but to be number 3 in a big 3 that was all-time. These are guys that, if not for the enshrinement, even with the enshrinement, are probably going to be overlooked historically, but it's nice to see guys like that get their night.
The one stands out to me because it struck me as strange as to why separate than that was Bill Russell. And Bill Russell obviously made it decades ago as a player. And you think about what a tough act he had to follow as Red Auerbach stepped aside as coach to become the general manager of the Celtics.
Yeah.
And Russell was a player and replaced him. So why do you think it took so long to add, the addition of Russell, the Hall of Fame coach, as well as the Hall of Fame player?
Frankly, because Bill Russell, the coach, isn't anything like Bill Russell, the player. This was a different league. There was a concentration of power, particularly in Boston. Now, obviously, they didn't stop Red Auerbach, but he's considered the architect of those great teams. Bill Russell was largely thought to have inherited those teams. Not to ascribe any extra or any ulterior motives. But in the NBA, that's becoming more and more socially conscious, and I guess to make social justice at kind of the forefront of their agenda. To see Bill Russell, a guy who's synonymous with it, get his second induction as a coach right around now is not necessarily. I don't think it's a bad move. I think it's probably a very politically savvy one for the NBA. But I think it took this long because he's not Red Auerbach as a coach, because he inherited a dynasty and he just kept his foot on the pedal as it kept going. But Bill Russell, the player, far outshined Bill Russell, the coach.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Chaim, thank you so much. Chaim Talbot here each and every week with the NBA Report. One of the guys, Ben Wallace, I never really looked at him
because
as
he played in a city you don't really follow.
Yeah, interesting.
He's one of those guys that had great career.
Right, that name is the one that stood out. That's debatable. Maybe
because he's never played in New York. He played West Coast Conference.
So you didn't get to see him
Western
much.
Conference, didn't see him much.
All right, quick break, and we'll talk about the NFL, and I'm sure Jay is going to love to talk about Tom Brady and maybe his Subway sandwiches. So keep it tuned right here.
Decolator Cohen and DePrisco, LLP, is pleased to introduce their website, policeofficersrighttosue.com, as an educational and informative site designed to instruct members of the law enforcement community of their civil rights in line-of-duty accidents. Many law enforcement members are not aware of their rights to sue and fail to bring lawsuits within a specific time frame, thereby forfeiting their ability to seek rightful compensation against those parties that cause officers to be injured. PoliceofficersRightToSue.com provides successful past results of line-of-duty lawsuits. These examples range from officers being provided with inadequate equipment, RMP accidents, slip and falls, and station house mishaps. If any law enforcement member has a question regarding a potential lawsuit, they can contact DCD at policeofficersrighttosue.com or at 1-800-901-1LAW. That's policeofficersrighttosue.com or 1-800-901-1LAW.
And welcome back to the home stretch of Sports Talk New York this Sunday night. Make sure you keep it tuned right here, because right after the great show, BT Talks Baseball is right up after us. It's now time for the Capco NFL Report with Jay Retcher. You know what? Fall is right around the corner. You want to make sure that, if your screen doors have taken abuse over this summer, that you get them replaced, because you want to keep those windows and doors ready to let that crisp fall football air in the house and the bugs out with the Clearview retractable screen. The Clearview retractable screen system comes standard with a lifetime warranty and the patented speed reducer, so it won't snap back. You get the luxury of a screen door and a sleek, low-profile design without the hassle of a bulky storm door or sliding screen door. Call 631-440-1100 for a free estimate. That's 631-440-1100, or visit them on the web at clearviewlongisland.com. All right, so you know what? I know you're going to want to start here. Very good game to start off the football season. If you're a Dallas Cowboy fan, there's a couple of takeaways from that game. Dak looked really, really good.
That's the main takeaway.
That is the main takeaway.
They're worried about the injury coming back.
Right. And if you're a Giant fan, that's a big takeaway as well. That's a little scary. But Tom Brady, old man River, he just keeps rolling along. What did you see out of Tom that, if there's a detractor that wants to find a chink in the armor of Tom Brady, what did that game show, if anything?
That you might need to pick another player to start thinking about his downfall.
Yeah.
Guys, I see this guy up close and personal. And, as a guy that grew up, around you and watching the Giants beat them and, that New York-Boston rivalry, it's safe to say I wasn't a Tom Brady fan for all that much. For the first part of his career, all that much. But the last 2 years, man, here in Tampa, just watching this guy on a day, my uncle even asked me the other day, he goes, what is it like, just seeing him do his thing? And guys, I've seen it with guys, and I know being around hockey too, I've noticed it one time at 7 a.m. in the morning when I noticed Sidney Crosby at Amalie Arena. I go, he's here 12 hours before a game. Half the other players are still sleeping. There's that work ethic. There's just the attention to detail and the way that you raise the level of the teammates that you have on your team. I saw it with Crosby. I see that same kind of thing with Tom Brady. Guys, he doesn't look like he's slowing down at all. He's just incredible. And you mentioned Dak Prescott. That's probably one of the biggest kind of points of emphasis this entire week one. No preseason, coming off of injury, doing what he did against that Buccaneer defense. To me, the Dak Prescott, I'd be very surprised
if he stays like this, if he doesn't finish in the top 3 or 5 in the MVP.
So you just raised a point that really the one concern I walked over in the game with, because I have Tampa Bay as my team, my defense, my fantasy team. What happened to the Todd Bowles defense? Why was Dak Prescott able to pick them apart the way he did?
Well, a couple things. One, just the guys on the outside just weren't getting home. So they had 1 sack, and listen, Dak Prescott, he could have threw that ball away. The 1 sack that he did take from Shaq Barrett when he was rolling out to his left. I think something over time, I think it'll work itself out because you still have those front guys, Shaq on one side, JPP, and Joe Tryon-Shoyinka, the first-round pick. But you can get rid of the ball very quickly when you have the lack of strong secondary play that we saw in that game. Sean Murphy-Bunting goes down, and luckily for Bucs fans out there, it only looks like a dislocated elbow. People thought he was going to be out for the year. We're still waiting for how long it's going to be. I'd say probably 2 to 3 weeks, but we'll find out more tomorrow and Tuesday from Bruce Arians. And those guys just, you're going to see some sloppy play early on. And we've seen some of these blowout games, watching the Saints game right now, where some of these defense just look a step behind. And that's what you're going to have. That's what you're going to have early on in the season when you don't have a ton of starters playing in the preseason. You're just going to get some wild and crazy outcomes. You're going to get blowouts. You're going to get good defenses that are going to play pretty poorly. I think we come back to the conversation in week 4 or 5. So don't sell them yet, AJ. But if I see anything, I'll definitely let you know as soon as possible so you can get rid of them and pick up somebody else.
All right, we got 1 minute before we give way to BT Talks Baseball. The 2 New York teams, the Jets coming off of a fairly good second half of a game. We're in a game. Giants right now are not in a game. For those 2 New York franchises,
and the 2 quarterbacks especially.
Right, glass half full or half empty for week 1 of these 2 teams.
Empty for the Giants, full for the Jets. I like what I saw from Zach Wilson. It's a growing process. I think the Jets got away with one with Mekhi Becton. It looks like a sprained MCL, not a torn ACL. That's good. But listen, they battled. The whole team battled. And I think you look at that team and you go, listen, they're outgunned. They're going to be outgunned a lot this year, but it's the effort. The Giants, on the other hand, Joe Judge throwing a flag for a touchdown. This is something that you can't have as a guy. It's not your first year. Daniel Jones, I'm not seeing this. This Denver defense they're okay, but they're not great shakes. This is home. I'd be really worried and really upset if I'm a Giants fan.
Awesome, Jay. Thanks so much. Jay Retcher here each and every week with the NFL Report. It's that time. We give way to another great show, BT Talks Baseball. We'll see everyone next week.
May you have an easy fast.
Have a great one, everybody.